Joint Base Andrews outside Washington, D.C. just moments ago after tributes this weekend in Alabama. Today, Lewis's final journey will take him through Washington, where he spent much of his life, pausing at some of the places that held great meaning for him, including the Martin Luther King Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the National African American Museum, and finally the Capitol itself. John Lewis came to Washington as a Georgia congressman 33 years ago and earned the reputation as the conscience of the Congress. As we see the motorcade make its way off of the joint base, he was in Washington more than 2 decades before that to witness President Johnson's signing of the Voting Rights Act, legislation that his courage helped push forward. Lewis's body will rest in the Capitol Rotunda as fellow members of Congress pay tribute today, and then he will lie in state on the east steps of the Capitol, where the public will pay their respects through Tuesday. We've got our correspondents and some special guests standing by to help cover today's events. I do want to start with John Meacham, an NBC News contributor who's just written a book on John Lewis's life, listing off those places that this motorcade will either pass by or pause at. How does that describe the Washington, John, as seen through the lens of John Lewis?
These are the monuments and the places to which his life gave full and vibrant expression. His first trip to Washington was in May of 1961. When he first came to this city, he came to join the Freedom Rides, which began in Washington and then headed down through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, into Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. He began that journey here, where he's been brought home for the last time. But he ended that journey at Parchman Prison in Mississippi, a devastating place. William Faulkner called it Destination Doom. But he did it because he was summoning all of us to actually live up to the creed that is embodied in the monuments in this city. And I think the work of John Lewis's life was to take the high-minded and the rhetorical and make it real. And he was willing to give his life at every point for that. And so as he goes to the Dr. King's Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, where he spoke in 1963, giving a fiery speech, the Kennedy administration was so worried about the radical young John Robert Lewis that they had 2 guys stationed inside the memorial ready to cut the microphones if Lewis got too radical. And they were going to play a recording of Mahalia Jackson's "I've Got the Whole World in My Hands." Contrast that skepticism of the federal establishment to what we're seeing now. This is a hero's welcome, and it's the rites and ceremonies that we most often associate with military heroes. But I think it's important for us to remember today and tomorrow and through the rest of the week, not every war hero served overseas. This is a man who walked into enemy fire in his own land and helped redeem that land to a large extent.
And we will continue to watch the procession, the motorcade, making its way slowly into Washington to begin making these stops at these various places along the way. And as you noted, the Lincoln Memorial, Congressman Lewis was the last surviving speaker of that March on Washington. I want to go to Kristen Welker, who is at the memorial right now, to give us some more of the flavor and context there.
Lester, John Lewis was just 23 years old when he spoke here at the March on Washington in 1963. He was the youngest speaker, and he spoke with an urgency and an impatience for change that would mark his entire career. Here are some of his words. Lester, he said, "To those who have said be patient and wait, we have long said that we cannot be patient. We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now." You heard John Meacham talk about the fact that the Kennedy administration was concerned about some of his fiery rhetoric. Well, so were some of the organizers of the march, including Martin Luther King Jr., who made him take out some of the most fiery references. They were concerned that it would undercut the broader message of nonviolence. So, for example, they made him take out a reference to Sherman's March Across the South. They made him take out a reference to Scorched Earth. But Lewis's message was the same. He was demanding change, and he was demanding it right now. And that is a message that he would carry throughout his entire career as he fought for voting rights, as he fought against gun violence, and in most recent days, as he fought for Black Lives Matter. And he continued that fight for freedom, equality, and justice, Lester, into his final days. I had a chance to cover a virtual town hall that he did with former President Barack Obama. He was so energized and excited by the protests that he saw stretching all across the country. He talked about the fact that they were diverse. They brought together people of all ages, races, cultural backgrounds. He saw them as the change. He said they're going to help redeem the soul of America and save our country and maybe help save a planet. Lester, this was a civil rights icon who was impatient for change in 1963 when he was just 23 years old, and he was impatient until his final days demanding change. Lester.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.